Welcome to the Bearded IFA podcast. Today's guest is Emily Littlehales from Celtic Law. Emily, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Rob. How are you?
Excellent. I know you're really excited about this because you love going on camera.
I absolutely love being filmed, yeah.
I'm getting those
I do.
vibes. But we're here to have a great chat, and I think your story, setting up your own legal practice, is really interesting. So for the viewers and for the listeners, let's rewind. How did you become a lawyer, and how did you set up your first business?
So how did I become a lawyer? So probably up until about the age of 13, I wanted to be a vet. Soon realised that I didn't cope very well around blood, so that wasn't a good option.
It's probably a problem.
It was a bit of a problem. And then it was a case of, well, you're not much good at maths, you're not good with blood, so you can't be a doctor or an accountant. Why not be a barrister or a lawyer or something like that? So obviously you see the barristers on TV, don't you? The court action, that sort of thing. So it's like, right, okay, pursue that. Promptly realised that I'm not a very argumentative person, so going to court probably wasn't the best thing. So kind of landed on being a solicitor. So kind of the path to being a solicitor is pretty clear. You do your law degree, you go to law school, you do your training contracts. So kind of from probably about the age of about 16 onwards, that was the path I was on.
Oh, that early?
Yes. Yeah, everything was geared up towards, what A levels I took, what degree I did, everything geared up towards being a lawyer. So I started my career as a general practitioner. So I was really fortunate. I went into law school, which would have been in 2006, I think now. And I was quite lucky that I was one of the few to have a training contract lined up when I finished. And I started the first 10 years of my career with a really nice practice, sole trader based in North Wales. Kind of always thought that I'd be going to London, to the big city lights, but soon realised that's not for me either. So I spent the first 10 years as a general practitioner, which basically meant that we did any area of law, anything from divorce, landlord and tenant, conveyancing, litigation, all that sort of thing. And then in 2017, things sort of changed for me, and I think we'd met maybe about a year before,
Yeah, I think it was,
approximately, on what
around
was
2016.
Twitter, now X.
Yeah.
And I came to you and said, I've got this idea about setting up a law firm, and it kind of went from there, really. I wouldn't say that setting up my own business was part of my plan. I think if you'd have asked me 9, 10 years ago, would I be doing this? I'd have said, absolutely not. I'm not a business person. I still don't really consider myself as being a businesswoman.
And is that
I'm
the
just doing my job.
reason? Is that the reason you say that? Because you thought the idea of setting up a business was way out of your comfort zone?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the weird thing was, like, before I set up the firm, I was in a position where I could either get a job somewhere else or I could set up my own law firm. And oddly enough, setting up my own law firm was less daunting than getting a job somewhere else, which seems like a really strange thing to say. And I think I've since learned that there's this thing called imposter syndrome. So it seems like ludicrous to think now that this seemed like the less risky plan of action rather than just getting a job somewhere else. But yeah, and it just kind of went from there. And I think what I like about it is that I was able to do things my own way. I'm quite a creative person, so I'm able to kind of exercise my creative brain and make the workplace and my business somewhere that I actually want to be and that other people want to be, which is really important to me. So yeah, I always call myself the accidental businesswoman. It was never in the plan to set up my own company, but here we are,
Here we are.
9 years later.
Absolutely. And knowing that then, and being 9 years down the road, would you do it again?
That's a really tough question. It is a bit of a love-hate relationship. Sometimes I do think, do you know what, it'd be nice just to have a bit of time off or holiday, take 2 weeks off. It's taken a while to get to a point where, I kind of am where I am. I probably would do it again, if I'm honest. Yeah, I guess I would. I don't think I'm employable anymore, put it that way.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because you create a culture, you create a framework of how you want to do business, and it tends to be quite uniquely linked to you, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So yeah, I can see why you say you wouldn't be employable to anyone else, because I'm sure everyone else does things very differently to you.
yeah.
But let's touch on that then. What do you think has been um, the unique selling points of Celtic Law compared to maybe some of your traditional competitors out there in terms of how you've gone about things? Because I think I'm right in saying you specialised in in a certain part of law?
Yeah, so we only do wills, trusts, power of attorney, and bereavement services. So helping clients where they've lost a loved one. So we kind of market ourselves as a boutique law firm. And I guess that's the area of law that really interests me. It sounds like it could be a little bit mundane, a bit boring, but actually I really love it. We are really passionate about what we do, and we enjoy the subject matter. We enjoy working with our clients. And I think, the fact that we do specialise, I like to think that, we love what we do and we do it really well. We're just focusing on that area. And I mean, obviously, we talk about competitors. I've got really good relationships with lots of other firms because I'm in the fortunate position where we don't do other services. So, we like to think we pass a lot of business to other law firms. But yeah, I'd like to think that we're unique. I don't think there's many firms that just do what we do.
So that narrowing of services then and focusing on those key areas, do you think that's been a limitation in growing the business, or do you think actually the opposite, that it's allowed you to grow because you've built a reputation on those key areas?
So when I first started, I did non-contentious divorce. So in other words, amicable
Are
divorces.
they a real thing?
They can be, yeah, but I didn't get that many leads, I have to say. And I also did conveyancing. I'd say that probably when I first started, about 60% of my workload was conveyancing. So when I decided not to do conveyancing anymore, probably shortly after COVID, that was a huge leap of faith because I had to cover 60% of what was my turnover with wills, and you have to make quite a lot of wills to make up that turnover. So it was quite a big risk, I think, to dilute the services down. And it also took some getting used to saying to people, we don't do that.
Mm.
And again, because I was a general practitioner, we did everything prior to Celtic Law. So it did take some getting used to saying, I can't do that for you. I probably can, but I shouldn't and I can't. So I think from my point of view, I wouldn't necessarily say it's prevented the growth of the business. Being a solicitor is a particularly difficult industry, the way we're insured, for example. So if I was to take on litigation work or conveyancing work or any of the more riskier areas, that's quite a big insurance risk.
Right.
So there's probably other considerations to just taking on a new service that would have to be carefully managed. So I guess that's probably what would stop me from growing into other areas. But I've got, at this moment in time, no intention to expand into other services. I'm quite happy with just keeping to what we do and doing it really well. Obviously, it's the area of law that I know really well. And from a supervisory perspective and from my regulatory perspective, I've got to be able to understand and know the work that is going on in the business. So, yeah, I don't have any immediate plans to take on any other services.
And again, I think being able to niche into a certain part of law in your case, because you're doing it all the time, like you said, you can be really good at it, can't you?
Mm.
Because you know the ins and outs, you know the changes.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing I'm right in saying that um, law changes all the times in terms of, what's allowed, what's not allowed, wording. I know when I've looked at old wills in the past, the language is very different to what we
Yeah.
use today. So, just putting that microscope on that certain area of law, I'm guessing it allows you to be very good at it.
Yeah, and there's so much to it as well, and I think that's why I like it so much because there is so much to it. There's so many different opportunities and tools we've got, and every client is different, their circumstances are different. So actually, as a legal subject matter, it's actually quite varied, so that kind of keeps me interested in it, if you like. And as you say, we would like to think, I mean, nobody knows everything, do they? But I'd like to think that we do know everything about what we're doing. Um, and to think back as to how we used to do wills, I remember seeing clients and we would say, so what is it you want your will to say? And the clients would tell you what we want the will to say. If you die, it goes to me. If we both die, it goes to the children or whatever. Whereas now we go into so much more detail, even like the information that we take from clients and, we take a much bigger view of it. I can't believe that we used to do wills that simply way back when. Obviously, it's changed a lot in that respect as well. And I always say it's a bit like getting your hair cut, getting a will. Like you could go into the hairdresser and say, I want a Mohican, I want you to dye it lime green. But you expect your hairdresser to say, actually, I don't think that would suit you because of this, this, and this, or have you thought about that? So I think my approach in the years that I've been doing wills has certainly changed as well, and it's kind of developed. Um, yeah, so
No, agreed. And I know from a financial planning perspective, wills are a really important tool now because they do so much more than that, classic, if I die, this is where the money goes to. So let's touch on some of the important points then of wills. Obviously, everyone should have a will. If you're listening, if you're watching, go and get a will. Um, but what are the key things that you talk about with clients in wills now?
So, a lot of clients are obviously interested in their inheritance tax position, and that's one of the areas that's changed. You'll know, sort of over the last couple of years,
Growing
some
burden
big
for many
changes.
now, isn't it?
Yeah, so that those people that perhaps weren't looking at an inheritance tax problem now are. So that's one of the key things that we talk about, and also care fee planning as well. So a lot of clients are surprised that a will can do a little bit more in terms of protecting wealth from things like care fees. We talk to a lot of families that are structured in different ways, blended families, that may have other concerns as well in terms of protecting children from previous relationships. There's different will structures, cohabitees, for example, if you've got an inheritance tax problem, making sure that your will is savvy in terms of how it's structured for inheritance tax purposes. So I'd say that probably inheritance tax and care fee planning are like the biggest topics of conversation.
And they can make a huge difference, can't they, in someone's circumstances? If you do a bit of planning, it can save hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
pounds, and equally, as you said, there can protect assets, can't it?
Yeah, and it's about information, isn't it? I mean, even if we do go down the route, I always say to clients that we're going to touch on different options for you. Doesn't mean to say you have to go down those routes. I'm not here to try and sell you a more expensive or a more complicated will. It's just about having that awareness that actually you can do something else, even if you want to do a simple will now. Your classic simple mirror will, that's absolutely fine. Treat it as a 5-year will, come back to me, we'll review it again in 5 years. Or if the trusts do interest those clients, then obviously it's an opportunity to have that conversation. But it's about educating people about what wills can do.
Absolutely. And just keeping on the theme of wills, horror stories of people doing it themselves and buying a will pack from what was WH Smith. Other news agents are available, but I'm sure you've seen plenty of horror stories over the years
Yeah,
of
and
not taking
obviously
advice and the dangers of
the
it.
emergence of AI. I mean, AI is incredibly clever.
Yeah.
We've started using it. It's really clever. But I think they will gradually become more of an issue potentially over people who've made their wills via whether it's Smiths or whether it's AI. I mean, having a will is better than not having a will, but obviously you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
and you're missing out on that key advice if you're not using a professional to do it as well. But the key thing is to get a will and to get proper advice in relation to it.
I think it's the relationship that comes with working with a trusted professional as well, isn't it? That, their circumstances might change. They know they can come back and make an edit. And I'm guessing, making a tweak and an edit is not the same as a full blown let's start again exercise.
Not always. It depends on what it is. If you're wanting to remove somebody from a will, sometimes we say, let's
Right.
make a new will for you because you
Easier.
have to exhibit both your will and your codicil.
Does
So
that happen a
they
lot?
can see this is what you could have had. Now you haven't. Yeah, sometimes we don't get an awful lot of people doing that, to be honest. But yeah, of course, family dynamics change, don't they? But yeah, simple changes can be made by way of a codicil, but quite often it depends on how long ago the client made that will as well. If you're coming up to that kind of 5-year trigger point, I will always say to the client, let's just go through everything to make sure that nothing has changed. They may have had an inheritance that maybe they've, had since the last will they've done, which then impacts their inheritance tax position. Any changes to a will, whilst it might not necessarily result in a brand new will being drafted, we always treat it as though almost like it's a new will, really, just from a due diligence point of view, to make sure that there's nothing that the client needs to know that may have changed since the last time they've been in to see us.
Sure. And in terms of the business journey with wills, then, am I right in saying because you've had Celtic Law for 10 years ish, kind of
9 years, it'll be 10 years next year.
10
Yeah,
years next year? Amazing.
yeah.
Um, you've had Celtic Law for 10 years. You've obviously been doing wills for those 10 years. Have you started to see the beginning of that full circle event, those clients that did a will with you passing away, and then maybe getting involved with the families now and probate planning and estate planning? Has that started
Yeah,
to happen?
yeah, and unfortunately it has. Obviously, we never like to learn that a client's passed away, but yes, because initially when we first started, it was a case of we were doing wills. The probate work wasn't that quick incoming, so to
Yeah.
speak. And then eventually, once you've been going for a little bit longer, you've got more wills under your belt, so to speak, then you do get, hopefully, the clients choose or the families choose to come back and ask us to help with the administration side as well, which we're always happy to do.
And has that got harder? Because from clients that I've dealt with, it feels that probate is very complicated now. The tax system's very complicated. It feels that things take a long time with, government departments to get back with the
Yeah.
information. We know pensions are changing in a big way in terms of the responsibilities for executors there.
Mm.
Do you think that's going to become a bigger piece and maybe more clients that would have in the past, I'll do it myself, will come and turn to you now?
Quite possibly, certainly with the pension side of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of our probate applications, in fairness, the probate registry are pretty good. The simple wills, the simple probate applications, we can get those back relatively quickly. Anything that's a little bit more complicated can take a long, long time. Which is very frustrating both for us and for the clients as well. Inheritance tax is a minefield. Wouldn't recommend anybody try and do an inheritance tax form without any advice. And certainly that pension point, I do think that people are going to have to be a little bit more wary now in terms of being an executor. How the tax is going to be charged on the pension, who's responsible for it, is it
How's it paid?
executors, is it the pension trustees that are responsible for it? So yeah, certainly going to add another layer of complexity, I think.
Yeah, which you imagine would mean that you'll be busier because more clients will want that support. And I think the other big change, thinking about inheritance tax planning, I can see if I look down the road, I think more and more clients will start thinking about inheritance tax planning schemes and investments that they can make to reduce the
Yeah.
liability. Again, I imagine that's going to create more work because suddenly, okay, we just used to have a pension and money in the bank. Now we've got those plus
Yeah,
these
for
inheritance
perhaps
tax
assets
planning schemes. Yeah,
that people aren't necessarily that familiar with.
correct.
Yeah.
On that point then, if you had a crystal ball, and we'll go fairly short, we'll go 5 years.
Mhm.
What do you think is going to be different in 5 years with both the industry and maybe Celtic law?
So certainly, I think with the industry, it's going to be different because I think, is a fast-moving thing, and we've got to jump on the back of it. Obviously, I've probably considered myself to be a little bit slower than everyone else in terms of using it, but it'll be interesting to see how that emerges. Is that going to mean more people doing their own wills? Is it going to become so sophisticated that an AI tool can calculate your tax or recommend will structures? I don't know. That is obviously a threat. I don't think it will fully replace um, the professional. I think that clients will be more savvy, more aware, more educated, possibly when they come to me. They may have already, done their own research and what have you. But I certainly think that AI for the profession as a whole is something to watch and factor in. In terms of Celtic law, in 5 years' time, I'd like to think that I'd have another solicitor with me, maybe one or two. Hopefully, Frankie will be qualified as a solicitor in a couple of years' time as well. So,
This could be a recruitment
it could
podcast.
actually
Engineer.
it could
Yeah,
be a recruitment
very
exercise.
like a
Anybody that wants
solicitor.
a job, yeah, private client solicitor that wants a job. But yeah, that would be a nice position. I'm not necessarily looking to take over the world. I'm looking for somewhere that's nice for me to work, nice for my colleagues to work. I'm not looking to take over North Wales or the UK
A bit of
with
balance.
Celtic law. A bit of balance, a bit of work-life balance for me would be nice.
Yeah,
That would be a nice position. I'd like to think 4 or 5 years time.
I
But
hear you.
yeah,
And do you think that will? Because at the moment it's a strong female team of three.
yeah.
Do you think you'll keep that female team together, or is there room for a male to come along in that
Well, I
mix?
think I'd be in trouble if I specifically recruited for a female. So, yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman.
Yeah,
Um,
that wasn't a trap, by the way.
no, no. I mean,
Oh, it's
obviously,
unique. It's a nice, unique thing, isn't
it's
it?
a nice selling point for us
Yeah,
that we are an all female team, and lots of people prefer that. People specifically request a female solicitor sometimes.
yeah.
But I think as long as the person's the right fit and they fit in with the team, and they've got the same visions as us, and want the same thing in terms of progression through the firm and building the business with me. I don't see Celtic Law as just being me. I see it as being us. It's very much, if Celtic Law does well, we all do well.
Yeah.
So yeah, doesn't
S-
matter if you're male or female, you're still welcome.
Good. Leave the complaints there.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Emily. You've been a fantastic guest. Thanks for joining the podcast.
You're welcome.
And let's see what happens in the future.
Thank you very much, Rob.